This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening, everyone. Coming at you this week with some bad news, some good news. We'll get to all of that on the podcast, though. But first, I got to remind you guys to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1 for your first 2 months using code SMU1. Go to the site, ontheponyexpress.com. Click the join button. Hit the subscribe button. Use the code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1, to get 2 months for just $1. Get you covered through this big official visit weekend that SMU is having as well. And we are presented by our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com. Reach out to them today. David Henry and his team can help you guys plan the trip of a lifetime. That's what I always tell people, is that they have that first-class service when you call them at 866-405-2282 or go to their website and fill out their contact form. They'll reach out to you, and you guys can talk about where you want to go this summer, whether it's somewhere tropical, maybe somewhere across the pond. You can get out and see the world in that level of luxury that you would expect from a private jet. Company is going to be right there for you every step of the way, whether it's transportation on a big jet, small jet, helicopter. StatusJet has contacts all over the world to get you from point A to point B safely and create those unique experiences that create lasting memories for a lifetime. So reach out to StatusJet today and mention code PonyUpACC for a discount on a round-trip flight. All right, we're going to lead off with the bad news, and the bad news is that SMU did lose their quarterback commitment, Keelon Russell, this week. He flipped to Alabama, and the Mustangs are now left looking for a new quarterback for the 2025 class. And so I want to break this up here and share kind of how we got to this point with Keelon. Obviously, it's Alabama, guys. That is still the premier program right there with Georgia, Ohio State. Michigan just won a national championship. Texas made the college football playoff. LSU. I mean, there are certain programs that around the country are just going to command certain respect in recruiting. And if you're on the On the Pony Express message board, I felt like I, throughout the process, shared that if Texas A&M, if Texas pressed for Keelon Russell, I felt like he would flip. And part of that is me having spoken with a very well-placed source in Keelon's recruitment way back in late February, early March. And that person, who I really trust, told me if those two schools, if one of them presses, he's gone. And that shouldn't be too surprising in the grand scheme of things if you're an SMU fan. And that's just kind of how the college football landscape is. And whether Keelon was committed to a TCU, I think that would be true. Whether he was committed to a Baylor, I think that would be true. If those two schools pressed, he would move on and go suit up for one of those two programs. And there was a select group of programs outside of that, and group meaning, probably 2, maybe 3, that he really would have jumped at, in my opinion, based on conversations with said source, if they did turn up the heat. And for Keelon, it ended up being that Alabama turned up the heat on him. And we look at the last few months of monitoring this, and Texas hadn't offered. They have a quarterback commitment, KJ Lacey. Texas A&M was right in the mix, and Hassan Longstreet commits to them. A&M's out. And for the most part, it felt like Keelon wasn't going to go be a member of a 2-quarterback class. So there were a few programs that were out kind of right off the get-go. And as the spring unfolded, Alabama was in contact with him. And he was a prospect that they were evaluating, new coaching staff coming in. Ryan Grubb, the offense coordinator for Alabama, for a cup of coffee, left to go to the NFL. So they had to click the reset button on their whole recruiting board in a way. And they end up offering at the end of April. And it was an eye-catching one for him. There's no question about it. It's Alabama. I mean, you go there, stadium is 100,000, 18 national championships, Heisman Trophy winners. Obviously, Nick Saban is gone, but you also just hired a coach that brought his team to college football playoff. And so there's a respect factor when you look at those types of programs. And this well-placed source told me the big thing with Keelon is, will SMU be able to overcome the big stage? Will they be able to show him, yes, you're going to play a strong schedule. You're going to play BYU, TCU, Florida State, Louisville, programs like that in the ACC. They continue to schedule some high-profile out-of-conference games. You can win at SMU. They had shown that they've developed that piece of it. You can play with your fellow hometown teammates, like seeing Roderick Daniels go there, but especially Javion Holiday, Tyron Polley, guys like that. You can get to the NFL. SMU's put guys in the NFL. You can play in a fun offense. Rhett Lashlee's developed quarterbacks. It seems like every quarterback he puts into that offense is productive, and they end up being a top 15, top 10 offense. There's brand new facilities. They have the end zone complex. And there's NIL. I can tell you this much. SMU's NIL approach with Keelon Russell was going to put them right among the top quarterbacks in the 2025 class. Not the top, but right among the top quarterbacks in the 2025 class in terms of NIL deals. And that is something to not be slept on, because SMU, if they do need a quarterback in the future out of the transfer portal, they can go out and spend. And at one source put it to me like this. I mean, SMU would have outbid Oregon for Dylan Gabriel out of the portal with that type of NIL deal that they were putting together for Keelon Russell. So there's a bunch of pieces that SMU had going for itself. They recruited him early and done all those things. But when you step into Bryant-Denny Stadium, when you step into a Texas or a Texas A&M, that big stage, those huge stadiums are just hard to overcome. And knowing as well that you're going to play in the SEC. But with Alabama, that was the one that one source, once it finally came through, was like, watch Alabama in this one. Don't worry about Florida. Their coaching staff's on fire. It's not going to work out probably. They just got DJ Lagway. It doesn't make sense for him to go and sit behind DJ Lagway. And that could be a new coaching staff anyway. And it's, even farther. Don't worry about Ole Miss. Folks in his camp didn't want him there. Don't worry about Oregon. Far too far. Corey Moore's not going to go there. Watch Alabama. And that's why we talked about Alabama once that offer came through. The question was, would Alabama go out and offer another quarterback? Would they turn their attention to a couple others? They had recruited Julian Lewis, a five-star quarterback. They had kicked the tires on KJ Lacey, the Texas commit, which would have then impacted SMU anyway. There's always that question of, all right, are they going to recruit another quarterback? They didn't. They went all in, 10 toes down on recruiting Keelon Russell to be their quarterback, basically from the beginning of May through his official visit. And look, a couple things can be true at once. Keelon Russell, I think he likes SMU's coaching staff. I think he likes what SMU's got going on. I don't think he would have had any problem with going to SMU. I don't necessarily think he was absolutely going to flip to any of these schools that he was officially visiting. I think Alabama, and his commitment backs us up, I think Alabama was in the driver's seat to flip him. They have that big stage, and that's just something that SMU can't overcome. And until you take down the east side of the stadium and dig it out even more and put up a probably $500 million side of the field to do a 2-tiered true deck and suites on top of it, and you get UP to take down their restrictions on height. The stadium is going to look legit with the end zone complex, but there's that feel aspect that you go to Ford, and it's just a little different. Bryant-Denny, it's built all on top. I mean, it's an intimidating place and environment to go into, and it is massive. There's a lot of stadiums like that that can catch your eye like that, and that's something that you just can't overcome if you're SMU. So I'm not saying Alabama didn't do a good job recruiting him and things like that, and he just went to grab the logo and whatever, but that was kind of the key piece for him because he did have a lot of good relationships at SMU, and in my opinion, if he didn't go to Alabama, he would have stuck with SMU. So long-winded there. That's how we got here. Alabama ended up, going all in on Keelon Russell. Keelon did turn down a bigger NIL deal with SMU to, end up, committing to Alabama. It wasn't a money thing. And, a lot of people gave Keelon a lot of grief for how he handled this process and staying committed and all those things. For Keelon, and this is just him doing right by him, and then I can talk about the SMU angle. And he needed to stay committed to SMU because he wouldn't necessarily know if Alabama was going to take him. Like, look at A&M. Keelon went for a visit. It looked like things were just on the verge there. And then they get Hassan Longstreet, and all of a sudden, boom, dead in the water. So as a prospect, if you are kind of looking at a couple options, you don't decommit. You stay committed. And Keelon was on campus in January. He was on campus at spring practice. He was on campus for the spring game, came for his official visit. Even after or right before, kind of at the end of the Alabama visit, there were still some conversations that he was going to end up, making a return to SMU. But it didn't end up happening. Alabama really wanted him to shut it down, and he did. And so I don't think he was out here looking for drama or attention. His official visit to Alabama was the first weekend of June. And, a few days after it, he's shut down and he's flipped to the tide. He's not taking more official visits. So I expect Keelon Russell to be done with recruiting. I expect him to focus on his senior season and recruit for Alabama. Never say never in recruiting. I don't see him back at SMU when it comes to the high school side of things. Obviously, you recruit through the whistle for the transfer portal possibility, and we'll see. Maybe a quarterback gets taken from Texas, KJ Lacey, and then maybe that makes things interesting for him. But I still think he's done with recruiting, and he'll focus on winning a third straight state championship. So, with that said, Keelon Russell, we can move on from kind of talking about him, and we can talk about SMU and how this impacted the Mustangs, because SMU had to play the right approach here. This is a local kid. This is not somebody you went out and, like, if Tyler Aronson was playing these games, and Tyler wouldn't do this, but if Tyler Aronson was playing these games and was a top 100 type of prospect out of Florida that Rhett had gotten and all of that, I don't know if SMU entertains it like this. Like, I think they're bringing in other kids for official visits or other visits. I think they're actively recruiting other quarterbacks, doing all those things in terms of being okay with it being public. Where SMU had to walk on eggshells here is if they're recruiting hard, and we can talk about this, if they're recruiting a Ty Hawkins to flip from TCU, and I'll pull up the quarterback list here that SMU has offered, and actually pretty good group of quarterbacks that Rhett Lashlee's got offers out to. If he's recruiting, guys like Ty Hawkins to flip from TCU, Kevin Sperry to flip from Oklahoma, any of these other guys that maybe they really want to turn the heat up on, and they're doing it in such a public manner that such and such prospect says that, boom, there's just another level of like awkwardness. And if it's any other position, guys, that's just not how it rolls, right? Like if you have offensive linemen that are messing around with other schools, okay, you just keep recruiting other offensive linemen. You just always are recruiting multiple guys. But quarterback is quarterback for a reason. And there's only one usually in the class. And some schools can figure out a way to take two, but you always then potentially run the risk of them moving on. So you didn't want Keelon Russell to have that ammunition in a sense to just go ahead and move on. So they've handled this very precariously. But I can tell you this. We haven't seen SMU go offer another quarterback because they were really hoping and thinking that there was a chance that Keelon would stick. And there was that chance until Alabama really went all in on him. And even leaving the Alabama visit, Keelon Russell didn't have a silent commitment to the Tide. I am very confident saying that. I talked to our Bama Online people. I talked to Steve Wiltfong. We checked in with a couple other sources. Feel very confident saying that the Tide did not get a silent commitment from him on campus. And there are some people in Keelon's camp that didn't necessarily want him to back off of his SMU pledge. They want him to stay home and play for the Mustangs. But Alabama checked enough boxes and were able to get him on board. And so that's what happened. So SMU's been in contact with multiple quarterbacks. They've not extended a scholarship offer to anyone just yet that I've seen as of this recording. And so they will continue to recruit some of the guys that are on this list. If you go to ontheponyexpress.com, you go to football recruiting, you can find the offers thread there. Again, use code SMU1, SMU, the number one, for 2 months for just $1 of ontheponyexpress.com. But you can look. That's the group that they have offers out to. There's a lot of highly touted guys. Pretty much all of them are committed to Power 5 programs. And SMU will try to flip some of these players from their program. But I think watching this play out, SMU had to be careful. And now they can go all in on finding their next quarterback. Their next 2025 quarterback. There's no question about that they can, figure that out and, start recruiting other quarterbacks as, they get ready to maybe try and flip one or just continue to recruit them through the whistle and see if that helps. So I look at SMU's approach now as one where I think they need to. This is how I would do it, and I'm not Rhett Lashlee. I'm not in charge. If I was, here's what I would do. They have a few prospects on that board, notably Ty Hawkins. SMU was one of the earliest schools to offer him long before he was a top 100 prospect on On3. I would go all in on Ty Hawkins and try to flip him. I don't think it works. I'll be honest. I don't think they're able to flip him. But if they are, awesome. Who knows what type of success TCU will have on the field this year. And if it's bad enough, maybe they have to end up making a change. But for SMU, I think they can go all in on Ty Hawkins here. And if that works out, great. That's what they can do, and they can find a way to, flip him. It's going to be difficult. I mean, he's pretty locked in. That is a long shot, but that's what you can do if you're SMU. I do want to note a sleeper here, and he's a sleeper in terms of offers. He's not a sleeper in terms of where we have him rated. He's an 88, strong 3-star prospect. Chibolo Steele's Chad Warner, one of the top quarterbacks in Texas in terms of producing. He was able to really connect with Jalen Cooper, the 4-star wide receiver and SMU target. He was a Central Texas Offensive Player of the Year. He's an offensive MVP in his district, all first team, all area, 3,500 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and some more yards and touchdowns on the ground. He is somebody that a lot of people are pegging to have a monster senior year. Our national director of recruiting and national director of rankings and scouting. Charles Power is really high on him. And SMU is in contact with him. They are evaluating him. But long-winded way of saying, if I'm SMU, I go all in on Ty Hawkins, trying to flip him, because obviously that would hurt TCU, and you can get a heck of a quarterback and feel good about where things are going from there. The other piece that I would do is, if you can't get Ty Hawkins, which again is a long shot, so if a TCU fan stumbles across this, I'm not saying they're flipping him, just get out of here. But I would go senior eval. Here's the thing about quarterbacks, guys. You can be as big of a prodigy and get an offer as an 8th grader. You can blow up after your junior season and pick up a bunch of offers and commit somewhere and get to 4-star status. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter until that senior season. Your senior season as a high school quarterback largely determines the likelihood of you being an upper echelon college quarterback. And there's a bunch of reasons why. One, we see a hierarchy in quarterbacks in high school, right? You usually have to sit behind somebody unless you get in the right situation. There are very, kind of few Preston Stones in that sense, where he played all those years for Parrish. You have to sit in all likelihood. So you maybe get on the field as a sophomore or a junior and you break out, but your senior year is where you put together everything, and you are the most physically developed you'll be in high school, I'll add as well. And if you go out there, and again, if you're highly touted, if you're a prodigy, whatever, if you go out there and you toss 60% completion percentage and 25 touchdowns to 7 picks, or 30 touchdowns even to 7 picks, your chances of being an elite quarterback at the college level are analytically very low. Your yards per attempt matter. Your touchdown to INT ratio matters. Completion percentage is big. There are outliers to the rule. And being a multi-sport athlete helps as well. But if you don't go out there and absolutely ball out as a senior, that's where sometimes maybe you've gotten a guy who's topped out. Maybe you don't have somebody who's as good as you thought, which is really the tough part of high school quarterback recruiting, is these guys want to commit so early. Then in college gets stuck with somebody who is most definitely topped out. We see it all the time in the rankings, and from the rankings perspective, where we're watching a college take a kid, and I mean, we can't tell the future, so everybody has the chance to be wrong, but we can see certain kids that we say, that kid is 1,000,000% going to be in the portal in a year and a half, or man, that is such a reach for such and such school, but good on the kid for getting it, or whatever. There are just certain players that they end up reaching on because they get them committed so early. So for SMU, if they can go out there and senior eval somebody like a Chad Warner, for example, and Chad goes out there and through the first 4 games is completing 73% of his passes, and he's, only tossed an interception or 2, and he's got 12 touchdowns, and his yards per attempt are great, land him, wash your hands of 2025 quarterback recruiting. And I don't think SMU needs a quarterback in 2025. It just helped that Keelon was such a bell cow, in a sense, being a top 100 guy, being a multi-time state champion, that it made perfect sense. What SMU can do is, after this season, if they see a little attrition at the quarterback position, they can go out in the portal and go find somebody to come in and compete, or maybe somebody who just redshirted or played a little bit or whatever and is looking for a fresh start elsewhere. They can go out and do that too if they don't find a quarterback that they like. So we will see how it all plays out there on the quarterback side of things. I spent 25 minutes talking about quarterbacks. Haven't seen somebody get offered yet on the 2025 front, but look, there is time. They do not need to flip someone tomorrow. Be smart with the scholarship spot, and we'll see where things go. Quick reminder before we wrap things up, talk about official visits, StatusJet, statusjet.com. reach out to David Henry and his team. They're proud supporters of SMU Athletics, sponsor of the athletic department and SMU Athletics, and talk with them about your options for SMU's football season. The ACC schedule is going to be a fun one. We've talked so much about all the different places that SMU fans can go this fall that aren't in their normal wheelhouse of college football destinations for most. So that's why do the smart play and reach out to StatusJet and get with them on planning this season. Use code PonyUpACC and get a discount on a round trip flight. And remember, just because you're not in Dallas, StatusJet can get you from point A to point B wherever you are. So if you want to fly up from Miami for SMU at Virginia, reach out to StatusJet. They can plan that for you. If you want to fly across the country, they can do that for you. So appreciate StatusJet for all their help with On the Pony Express and, of course, supporting SMU Athletics. SMU is hosting another official visit weekend, and the staff is welcoming some of the top targets in the class to campus this weekend. And one of them I've got to highlight, and a quiet recruitment. I always get asked about this one, but Kamorian Morgan, Dallas South Oak Cliff, has visited SMU more than any other program in his recruitment. The Mustangs lead the On3 recruiting prediction machine for the four-star prospect out of South Oak Cliff High School. He transferred from Red Oak this offseason. He's ranked in the top 150 overall prospects, top 20 edge nationally. SMU battling the likes of Baylor, Texas, and Texas A&M for him. I am really intrigued to see where this one goes. He'll visit SMU this weekend before heading to Baylor and then finishing up at Texas A&M. And this is a chance for SMU to make a statement this weekend when it comes to their edge position. If they can find a way to get Kamorian Morgan to either give them silent and say, okay, I'm still going to take visits and just get them in a good spot, that's big. And they still are after Keandre Johnson from Terrell. They have some other edge prospects coming in this weekend, so check out the visitor list, again, at ontheponyexpress.com. But this is a monster opportunity for SMU to keep a local kid home, and the Mustangs will look to do just that with Kamorian Morgan. They'll also welcome Cameron Cullens, one of their defensive line commits, back to campus. He and his family coming in from Atlanta, as is Jalen Shivers, who committed to SMU after the spring game. Both of those guys coming in this weekend. Again, the full visitor list is at ontheponyexpress.com, and we will have all the details on that weekend for you guys. And also, Nathan Tillman, one of SMU's top commitments that I'm highest on, he did pick up a Texas offer. He's planning to officially visit Texas right now. This comes on the heels of guys like Elijah Pratt and Tyron Polley canceling official visits elsewhere. But Nathan Tillman is still stacking up offers, and he does plan to officially visit Texas. So that is one to watch. We'll see how Texas's board shakes out. But, I mean, the thing for Nathan Tillman is that if you're looking at the depth chart, SMU is going to lose Brandon Crosby, CJ Sanders, and Jonathan McGill. And they could lose one of Ahmad Moses or Isaiah Wokobia if they play well enough. Next year, if you want to go with an early bold prediction, there's a true freshman safety in the secondary that's either playing starter snaps or starting. I mean, seriously, that would be a bold prediction. Remember, bold. But Ahmad Moses, Isaiah Wokobia, Jaden Milner-Jones, that would be my early guess. Well, that leaves Abdul Muhammad, Kyron Chambers, Jalen Moses competing there. It wouldn't be a shock if a true freshman soft starter like snaps in that safety room. So do you play right away? Do you stay home? Again, that is one of the questions that one of SMU commits now faces since he picked up a Texas offer. So we'll be tracking Nathan Tillman to see what he ends up doing. He was a part of SMU's official visit weekend in May. SMU is still searching for a cornerback to fill that final scholarship spot, so we will, of course, continue to track that. I dropped a note on one potential target for SMU, but they are kicking the tires on transfer portal targets that are left, as well as junior college guys to look at that cornerback spot and see if they can fill that spot with another contributor. Again, the thing I like about SMU is they don't want to bring somebody in just to bring somebody in. They've got to fit on and off the field, especially in a room that does have some talent, does have some guys who are developing. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and all of a sudden you have a room that is turned upside down because you brought into cancer just because you feel like you need a corner, which SMU needs a corner, but they don't need a corner where you need to be sacrificing your room's chemistry for that corner. So there's a lot that goes into that. They've had some bad luck with guys going elsewhere, but they are working on it. They continue to target some guys and try to figure that out when it comes to the transfer portal. So we will keep you guys updated on what we hear, if anything. Big official visit weekend for SMU coming up this weekend, so be sure to watch for that. I'll also be out at their 7-on-7 tournament this coming weekend, and not this weekend, on Thursday. So maybe as you're listening to this, so keep an eye out for some of the content from that if we hear anything that is newsworthy. And then finally, finishing up with one of SMU's new basketball targets here, Kelen Russell. I might be butchering that a little bit, but I'm kind of going with the unique pronunciation there. He is out of Connecticut. He just scheduled an SMU official visit as well as a Houston visit. That'll be next weekend. He'll go take those two visits. So 2 in-state programs battling it out for one of the top risers in the country this offseason. He's now ranked just close to the top 50 overall prospects in the country, according to On3. So maybe you'll see other recruiting services catch up there when it comes to Kelvin's rating. But he is coming in for his SMU official visit June 14th. That'll be right off the heels of his official visit to Houston. So Mustangs offered him earlier or last month after a strong performance this past week. He'll also check out. He already has checked out Marquette as well. So a big talented guard. And again, SMU basketball also looking for that final piece to the puzzle. The NBA draft deadline has come and gone. So maybe we see the Mustangs get somebody out of the transfer portal finally. And we'll be keeping a close eye on that as well to see if they can do just that. So SMU basketball continues to try and dig up some targets out of the transfer portal as they look to finish out this roster for Andy Enfield and his staff. Finally, guys, this is some team notes here. We've been doing a bunch of content, Jordan Hoffeditz, around the program as far as looking at the expectations for the newcomers. He's broken down all the ACC transfer classes, which was a bear of an undertaking. So appreciate Jordan for doing that. But one thing I do want to note is the team is back on campus. So the Mustangs are back on campus for summer workouts. I am dropping on Friday some notes on the team and kind of how they look, the early impressions of some of the guys getting back to workouts. So be sure to look out for those. Again, it's a perfect time to jump on theponyexpress.com. Get all the summer content, all the rest of the official visit intel, all those things, and we will have you guys covered on that front as the Mustangs get ready for the ACC. ACC Media Days set for late July. The Mustangs will be on that first day in Charlotte, I believe July 22nd. We'll be there to cover it as Rhett Lashlee and the Mustangs get ready for the ACC, which they get into officially on the 1st of July. We've got a bunch of fun content planned around that. So the summer months are heating up. Hope you guys jump on board on the Pony Express with us for just $1 for 2 months using code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We will get back on a little bit more of a regular podcast schedule here in the coming week or so. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one and have a great weekend. And appreciate all you guys for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.